Research shows around 30% of male suicides are linked to a separation, and men who are separated or divorced are up to 3 times more likely to die by suicide compared to those in stable relationships. Scott knows this pain all too well. Enduring a brutal 6-year divorce, he was dragged through the family court, given limited access to his children, and found himself stuck in a storm of depression and pressure that threatened to consume him. Exhausted, with suicidal thoughts running rampant, Scott was at the end of his tether when he made a commitment to rebuild, starting by finally opening up. It's the reason he's alive today and a big part of why he founded Kokoda Centurions, a community-driven project that's much more than a trek through the jungle. This August, Scott will lead a group of 100 on a transformative journey along the Kokoda Trail, building resilience, fostering emotional strength, and taking a stand for men's mental health. At its core is a movement promoting healthy masculinity and calling on men to call out disrespect towards women. This is Scott Matthews.
Welcome to Young Blood, the volunteer video podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. I'm your host, Cal McPherson, and this is a platform for young men and their loved ones to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the #1 killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Credit Union SA and Bernie Lewis Home Loans, 2 South Australian businesses that believe in the value of raising mental health awareness, working together to help save lives. Improving the mental health of our communities is a complex challenge that calls for speaking up and taking action, and sharing lived experience stories is a major part of making positive change. We couldn't bring you these podcasts without their support.
This show touches on some tough topics that may provoke strong emotions. If you find anything in this chat distressing, please do whatever you need to do to look after yourself.
Scott, relationship separation is one of the biggest risk factors for male suicide, especially when kids are involved. What was it like for you trying to navigate your divorce?
It was the single hardest thing in my life. And I've had challenges in my life, significant challenges probably not everybody would face. That probably provided me with the resilience to get through my divorce. It was unjust and unfair. It was wrong. It was impossible. And it was just it was overwhelming. So every purpose of my life was to be a father, and I had to fight for that, regardless of how good I thought I was a father prior to the separation. And all of a sudden I had to justify that. It was warfare between 2 people, and with 2 children that were the victims of that warfare. And that hurts, I'm sure, the mother and the father, the 2 parties, and I think they lose sight of the pain that it causes to those children. But faced with impossibility is when maybe we don't think clearly and we can't choose the direction we're going to go thereafter. So of everything that I've faced in my life, and I never thought I would have got to this position, but that was the thing that almost got me. So it was impossible.
Tell me about the pressure you were under.
It was phenomenal. At the hardest time in my life was about 2019, and I would just wake every night. So the separation started 2016, and 2019 is where the gloss comes off and you become a single parent, a single person for the first time, not expecting to become single. You become a single parent, and there's an element of you act and you go out and you shift homes and buy furniture and you spend time with but then stuff starts getting real, and it. So 3 years in, I was at a point where I'd wake pretty much every night. It was always between about 2 and 3 a.m. In the middle of winter. My sheets would be wet from sweat, and I'm not that person. I'm not a sweater. And my heart would be thumping out of my chest. So I could feel it's like there's an adrenal gland behind your sternum that was just pumping out stress just all the time. My heart was responding, and I could feel my heart pumping out of my chest. And I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep because I'd be thinking about lawyers bills and emails that were sent, allegations that were made, and how do you get through it? How do you survive? And you'd lay there for 2 or 3 hours. My partner would be asleep in the bed next to me, so I try not to move too much. She's a light sleeper, so and then I'd lay there until 5:30 in the morning. I'd fall back to sleep, and I'd get up half an hour later. I've slept 5 hours for the night. Do this for 7 months. That's just not me. Like, when it comes to sleeping, I've always been a Viking. Like, that's one of my talents in life. I can lay down and go to bed, sleep just like that. God, I think I fell asleep in the Heaven nightclub a couple of times. I couldn't sleep, and the pressure was it was impossible. It really was.
How long were you in that state for?
So I'd say 2019 was probably the worst of it. 2020 was still really difficult. I was in that state for about 2 to 3 years. So I think I was in the family court for about 6.5 years, and from start to finish.
Did your current partner know the depths of what you were going through lying there every night?
I think so. I think for her, so we've talked about it with never sitting down and having a conversation about it. It's probably something that we probably couldn't do without therapy, for someone to direct that conversation. But the pressure on her was phenomenal. So I meet my now wife shortly after my separation, with no intention of it. We meet on Tinder, we go on a date. I don't want a partner, I don't want a girlfriend, I don't want any of that. But that's not what life chose for us. And the poor thing's just madly in love with me and me with her. And she just picked the wrong guy. Like, she got the bottom, she got the dregs, she just got this basket case with, there weren't skeletons in my closet. Like, I owned the whole warehouse of skeletons, and the pressure she was under was phenomenal. I know that she had her own pressures as a result of what I was going through. There were times where I just couldn't share with her anymore the troubles, so I had to take those troubles on myself. There's so much you can tell your partner without then burdening them with that pain. I would be certain that would have been a fear of hers, that my mental health was in strife.
How much did you let on about your mental health?
Probably not, and that's my failure.
And I'm sure she's intuitive. And one thing women really hate is when they know that you're not telling the truth about something.
That's why they're so good at it. And she's a medical professional, so she's a very intelligent person. And so I got to this point in those years where people, you meet someone and they go, "Hey, how you going?" And I didn't answer anymore because I didn't want to. Because if I met you, Cal, I'd go, "Hey, Scotty, how you going?" I want to kill myself. That was my answer. That's what in my head, my brain was going, "Tell Cal you want to kill yourself." So I go, "What's up, mate? What can I do for you?" And just be straight at the point, because I just couldn't do it. It was just a horrible time. She carried a huge amount of that pressure. She had to deal with the fact that she met this guy and it looks all great, and he's doing all right for himself, and then he ends up in the family court for 6.5 years. So you got this successful businessman who just dropped $4 million on a divorce. She didn't get anything. She was also probably my saviour, because there was an imminent need to be for her, and then knowing the pain that would be caused to her if anything happened to me by myself. And so there was always an immediacy that she was there, and so at the time I was seeing my kids 3 days a fortnight, and but she was there and she relied on me. So I got through that. Without her, I don't know if I would have got through that period. And if I didn't have her, it would have been incredibly reckless and self-destructive.
What was she able to do for you that helped?
She needed me, and I needed her. You don't know what you need when you go through a hard time and you can't see. When you're depressed, it's like you're in a valley, and the valley is The valley's dark and steep, and it's the depression, and it sucks you in. And the deeper you get in that valley, the less light you can see, to the point that you can't see light anymore. So how do you get out of that valley? And she was my sole light. And look, what's interesting about that is the pain, and all of my pain was to be with my children. So you go, anyone that's sane is going, well, you've got your children, mate. You had to be there for your children. And yeah, you do. But it's an illness. Depression's an illness. And I was never the guy to be in this position. That was never going to be me. I was always just a strong alpha, mentally and emotionally. And this was never going to be me. And so the answer to that is it's an illness.
So what did that do to your sense of identity, given that it showed that you were fallible? You'd always viewed yourself in a certain way, never expected your life to go this way, but then it did.
Yeah.
Did you feel guilty about that? Did you feel weak because you were...
It felt like a fraud. You know, there were times where I think there was I don't know when it was. I'm sure it all fell around that 2019 period where, I got served 3 summons in a week, and they were for bills, outstanding bills. I don't know what they were. I was trying to get a company off the ground at the time, and that was a victim of the separation as well, because your resources are divided and your equity's locked up or frozen in court assets. One of the bills came in. I didn't even know about it. I rang them. I said, mate, I'm having a really hard time. I'll get this paid for you in the next 14 days. I accept the summons. I apologise, and I'd pay the bill. But you got a sheriff's office rocking up or knocking on your door. You got 7 staff. They all know you're getting served a bill. And, you quite often go, oh, look, it's something to do with the divorce. They're not stupid. People aren't stupid. So, there's a huge part of you you're a fraud. But again, I go back to that place where you're making the best, worst decision you can. So you have to pay that summons of $2,000. So I had this thing where I had to pay my lawyers. I had to pay my child support, because that was so always thrown in your face and critical for the court position. And then I had to have enough money in my bank account at the end of the fortnight. So I got my kids for 3 hours on a Thursday night, which is embarrassing. I'm the dad that was always there and always present and always home and always reading stories and I think I'm a really good dad. And now I'm allowed 3 hours on a Thursday night. So we'd always go bowling and have sushi, and I had to always make sure that was my priority. They were my 3 priorities. After that, bills got paid if they could. And when I finally got money, I'd pay those bills. And it wasn't that I wasn't making money. I might be making really good money. But my lawyer's bills were in excess of $1 million over those 4 or 5 years. It's disgraceful.
But you were viewed as though you had endless money.
Yeah, but you don't.
Yeah, of course not.
I've got no equity. My separation was a payout on an equity position. So I didn't have the cash. It wasn't like you pay out the cash in the bank. If you've got a business and equity in a property and you've got to pay out on that, you've got to convert that to cash. You can't do that when your assets are frozen or when your business is struggling because your mental health is struggling. It was an impossible period. It doesn't matter what you did. You just couldn't win.
How did the family court system let you down?
So where I am now, 9 years since starting this process, I am able to reflect on where I was. My objective was to defend myself and be a dad to my kids. So every single thing I did, every single thing in life, I had to consider the consequences of what I did. But the family court is a government body charged with managing and ending the conflict. And they failed to do that for 6.5 years. They weren't there to bring me down. They weren't there to help me defend myself. They were there to end the conflict for the benefit of the family and the children. And they failed to do that. I went to court year after year after year with adjournment and adjournment and adjournment and adjournment. And I remember the judge saying, "You two are intelligent, professional, sophisticated people. It is a shame on you both that you're here in this court and you need to sort your business out." Well, that position is disgraceful, because if we could sort our position out, we wouldn't be in court. And it didn't help that COVID hit during this period. But The family court and the process is muckraking. She had her agenda. I had my agenda. The lawyers had their agenda. The lawyers were there to make an income. Some of them did care about me, and some of them were assisting me in making a resolution. But I believe that the family court system is broken and it isn't helpful in ending family conflict. You know, your 70-year-old Italian nonna that's a straight shooter and, you know, smacks you behind the ear and goes, pull your head in. And, you know, that's what the family court needs to be. The family court needs to be, you stop behaving that way. And if you can't, you throw out allegations, you've got to prove them. You stop behaving that way and pull your head in, come to a resolution, or else these will be the consequences. And at the end of this, there are 2 children sitting there, and you've got to resolve this. And you've got to, because when you go through that family court process, nobody ever comes out of that ever having a relationship again. And there's a lifetime consequence for the children as a result of that. You learn a lot. And when I went into the family court, you get told, it used to be the women's court. That's what men would say. And then people go, no, it's fair now. It's a fair system, and it's a family court, and men are heard equally. And then people would say, you know, it's the justice system. And someone said to me, it's just a system. And it's true, it is just a system. But it's there charged with resolving conflict, and it needs to do that. I think I'm a good dad. And I say that because I look at everything I've done in the past 15 years and everything I've learned as a son and a brother and as a person in life. I think I'm a really good dad. I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody's perfect. But the hallways of the family court are paved with bad fathers that have come before it the last 100 years. I don't know my biological father. I don't even use the word father. He skipped when I was about 4. I haven't known him for 35 years. Get divorced, you got 3 kids. I just go get a new wife and start a new life and just disappears, do something else, right? So the family court has seen this for 100 years. That was the way it was 50 years ago. You got divorced, oh, you got a new wife and you got a new family, and oh, they're my stepkids, yeah, your mother raises them, and you know, I mean, I didn't get Christmas cards, birthday cards, anything, nothing. So when I'm standing before the court going, hey, I'm a good guy and I want to be their dad, that judge has sat there, you know, my judge would have been 70 or something, I don't know how old he was, but he's hearing this person say something, but the 5,000 people before me said the same thing and weren't good people. So I get it, but it's just got to be so much better. And I shouldn't have to spend $1 million to be a dad. And you know, it's heartbreaking. If I won the lottery tomorrow, let's say, let's make it a good lottery. Let's make it $100 million, right? Got all the money in the world. I'd probably take on the family court. I really would. And I would do it to help other families, and not just the men, because every time mother and father go to war in the family court, they're both hurting. I'm sure my wife, I'm sure my children's mother didn't have a good time. I'm sure it hurt her just as much. And there's also this place where you're invested in the argument, and so you can't step out of it because you've got to pursue that argument. You've got to win that argument. But that's not what it's about. It's about the children.
But you lose sight of that.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's got to be a starting point of, right, unless there's a reason otherwise, you get the kids 50-50 each. If that had been the starting point, I wouldn't have fought. I just wanted to be, 50-50 was fair. And I would have gone, yep, no worries, you know. But that wasn't the case. Yeah.
What did having limited access to your kids do to you?
It destroyed me. The court has this position of 4 days a fortnight is considered reasonable time. But you don't get 4 days a fortnight because you pick your kids up on a Thursday night from school. Back then we go to the Hackney Hotel for dinner and we'd have a nice dinner and your kids would tell me about their week. You go home, kids go to bed. So you wake up the next morning and we'd go to a local cafe of mine on Melbourne Street. We'd go for breakfast I'd drop them at school and I'd see them Friday night. At the time, we were living next to the Botanic Gardens in this cool little townhouse, and we'd walk into the city and we'd have the whole weekend together. It was just us and 100%. Have that weekend together. Monday, they go back to school. I'm done. That's it. That's me for a fortnight. That's effective. That's 4 days. So you don't get Thursday. You don't get Friday. You don't get Monday. You get Saturday, Sunday, and Friday night. And then on the second week, I was allowed a few hours with them after school. And as I said, we'd always go bowling. And we go bowling, but they were into the arcade games. And it doesn't matter if I had no money left in my bank account. I would make sure there was $50 to buy them some credit in the arcade. And the priority was ridiculous. You'd have a unpaid bill or dozens of them, but you had to make sure that your kids saw this normality. And we kind of had this theme of Lego. So Lego was our common theme, where we'd sit on a Friday night. We'd sit in the lounge room. We built cities of Lego, and we'd have trains and fire stations, and where we'd sit there and play together. These were young kids. But then you go the next 10 days not seeing them. And so you're isolated from your children, and they're isolated from you. And the fear for you as a parent is your children are growing up without you being there and thinking about you. What the separation does is it makes you only a dad. Then you step up to this new level. You're at good level now. You got an amazing level where I didn't miss a sporting event. I didn't miss an assembly. I didn't miss anything. So if I could go to their soccer on a Thursday night when it wasn't my care and watch them play soccer, they would see me. And after the game, they'd run up and give me a hug and they'd go back. And so you were there and you were present. But the effort to be present was phenomenal. The last 10 years of my life as a father, my only priority is my children. I'm thankful my life's on track, but I've been through the bowels of hell to get to this position. And I've still got stress. I still carry stress from my separation. I've still got, some stuff. So I'm trying to lift up, and it's still hanging on to my ankles, kicking and screaming, not letting me go. But look, I know of a good friend of mine from the police academy. His brother separated, and he got effective time in court, 4 days a fortnight or whatever. And he lived in the country he was a police officer. He lived in the country, and he had like a 3-hour return trip to pick his kids up and have them for the weekend, and she just said no. So the result is he has to go back through court and do a contravention order and fight that. The guy just said, I just can't do it anymore. I've got no money left. I've got no time. I've got no energy. So I'm just done. So, the system is then, if you've got an order to see your kids, then you should be able to see your kids. You shouldn't have to go back and get a contravention order. It's not the police's responsibility to then police family court. But it can't get to that point where two people that got married and loved each other and had children now try and destroy each other. And it's
so common.
So common. It's so common, and it's so unnecessary. I know of people that have been separated and have a respectful relationship, can speak to each other, can show each other respect, and the children are so much better off for that. There doesn't need to be, in my separation, there didn't need to be anything that made it angry. 50% of relationships fail. And where those people have children, you have a link to that person for the rest of your life. So there's got to be a better mechanism to assist people to get through that without hatred. If I'm in the room with the children's mother, children have got anxiety over that for no reason other than they just know that their parents don't like each other. It shouldn't be that way. It's really sad. And I think society has to do better. Because one of the things is you're not allowed to talk about the family court. You're not allowed to do that. The idea of not talking about it is not to identify the children. I get that. But if we don't talk about it being a problem, how do we fix it? Don't have anyone trying to stand up and fix this problem. Because the emotional damage to the children and the parents, but then you've got the enormous cost of this failed system. But then you've got 7.5 men a day killing themselves, and I just believe that more than half of those 7.5 men are doing it out of separation. Some are doing it out of a biological disposition to depression. Some are doing it out of a failed business or financial pressures, and I see that in my business.
The stats are that men who are separated or divorced are up to 3 times more likely than those in a stable relationship to die by suicide.
Yeah. So why isn't there a Royal Commission into that? Why isn't there an overhaul of the system? Why isn't, I know when I was constantly in arrears on bills when I got divorced. There was always a lawyer's bill, always. And you could never pay it. You just know how much money you had, you could never pay it. You knew that the deeper and darker you got into depression, the lawyers were hammering you to catch up on their bill. Not once ever did I have a lawyer say, hey, here's a fact sheet about the risks of suicide, and here's a support service that you could reach out to. Here's a system that we can help with your bill.
Just expected that you'd handle it somehow.
I think they are the most. There's a term in the police called a combatant authority. So when you go to a siege, your combatant authority is your highest person to run that siege. They're the most relevant person. So if it's a fire, the fire brigade are the combatant authority, and your commander is the combatant authority. So when you're getting divorced, and the person you're dealing with the most and telling everything to is the lawyer, and they know you're depressed, well, they're the combatant authority. So why aren't they the ones that are charged with your mental health? That responsibility to go, hey, I know you're having a hard time. I'm sorry, but I've got a bill coming up. But these are some free support services that you can speak to. But the problem for men is that men, we don't speak because we're tough guys, right? So one of the things that it's really, really confronting to share my story because it's about me. Sitting here talking to you and telling you about it is one thing. Then watching it afterwards and I go, yeah, that was me. That happened to me. It hurts really bad. But if I don't tell my story, I can't help people. And one of my saving graces was my football club. So I played football and it was an escape for me physically and mentally and emotionally. And I felt like I was purging my stress when I'd run around on an oval. I trained really, really hard. And I had all these friends at football and nobody wanted to talk to me about finance and economic markets and these things. And I remember one day one of the players going, mate, if you want to come around, the wife will cook for you one night, come chill out at our place and take a load off. And what he was saying was, and I said, oh, look, I really appreciate that. And I never took him up on the offer because I'm an ignorant man who doesn't talk about his feelings. What he was saying was, I know you're having a hard time and I don't know how to help you, but I'd love for you to come around because I care about you and I want to see if I can help. That's what he was saying. And I know that women have this enormous emotional maturity that we don't. And so when they're going through a hard time, they've got a girlfriend that leans on them and they lean on each other and we don't have that. And I'm not suggesting that we need to like feminize. We don't have to.
Generally, we're perhaps not as we don't shine as much in that area as women do generally. Yeah.
But what if we do something? What if we say, Cal, I'm having a really hard time, and you go, shit, Scotty, I know you got a lot on. Do you want to talk to me about it? So I go, yeah, look, I think about killing myself all the time, every day, every night. And I think about how, and I know the consequences, I know the damage, I know all of it. I know all of this. And then, but see, then you go, oh, I don't know how to deal with that, Scott. So then, but.
You don't know that though.
No, I don't. And I don't. But it might not be Cal. You might be Cal, the forward pocket from the Woodville South Football Club. You might be Cal, the bank manager that works at the bank and deals with me on a day-to-day process that I trust in, because if I told you that, but sometimes just talking about it is going to help.
That confronting moment, you don't know. You have no idea if that other person can handle that. You have no idea if you can handle saying it. Yeah. Or what happens afterwards. And so there's a lot of fear around that, understandably. But that is actually what needs to be said. Yeah, it does. So again, looking back 10 years later on my separation, 10 years since I started. So it's only been 2 years since I finished. It's a phenomenal period of time. So looking back on the separation 10 years later, there are people who don't know how to deal with it. I have a really, really close friend, great friend, used to go out all the time. I haven't spoken to him for 10 years.
And initially I was like, why? Why aren't you contacting me? Why aren't, you know, and I've checked my phone and I sent messages out going, hey guys, life's really shit. I'd love to catch up for dinner. They didn't want to catch up for dinner. Maybe because it wasn't actually about me. It was, they didn't know how to deal with this. They didn't know how to, you know, maybe they were concerned about when I said I'm having a hard time, they didn't know how to respond. It's been 10 years now, and I don't think you can come back from that, because that friend goes, hey, I'm sorry I was missing through the hardest time of your life. I didn't know how to deal with it. Will you forgive me? Do you forgive that person? I don't know. But so then you've got people that are really good.
It shows that that when it really comes down to it, they're not there for you, whether that's because you're not worth it to them or because it was just too confronting for them based off their own stuff. You don't know. But real friends that you need to have in your life, they need to be friends through thick and thin, not just fair weather.
If they can. Maybe it's triggering for them. And so there are people in life that you thought would be there that weren't. And so you get angry as to why they're not there. But then again, looking back and reflecting on this period, it's because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to get through that period. And some people would say, and I won't name them, but some people will say, you'll be right, you'll get through this. It's the hardest thing ever, because you want to say, I don't think I will. You know, and so you got someone that, you know, is really important in your life who makes a comment like that. You know what your answer is and how you feel. So how do you respond to that? How do you respond to, well, actually, 100 times a day I think about killing myself? I think that everyone's got a self-destruct button. I didn't think I did, but it turns out I do.
Everyone's got a limit.
Everyone's got a limit. So everyone's got this self-destruct button, and you don't want to push it. You don't want to. So I never wanted to kill myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And the voices were dark. You know, initially it was, if you're going to end your life, make a statement. You know, some of the stuff I thought about was just ridiculous. You know, like a public, and it was anger. It was anger about the way I was being treated in the family court. This voice is constant, and at no point in time did I ever want to do it, nor did I ever try. Which I think is important to say, that I didn't make an attempt. I'm also not a person that does something half-hearted. Where what I've done and achieved in my life, if I do something, I'm going to do it. I got to a point where I didn't know if I could get through anymore. And I come to the realization that if I was going to do it, I didn't want to hurt myself, which is hilarious, right? So I'm an ex-police officer, and I've been to suicides, I don't know how many, like so many. And I've seen the way it's done. I've picked up bodies, people's loved ones. And I won't even go on the stories, they're horrific. I didn't want to do that to myself. So I wanted to do it in a way that would be as gentle to my body as it could possibly be. You just find that so interesting that you don't want to leave, you just can't handle the pressure and the pain anymore.
And you believe that it's not going to end.
But it hadn't ended for 2,500 days. And the embarrassment was insane. When I got separated, I was a mover and shaker. I was going pretty well, and I had a business and it was going well. And I think at the time we separated, I had something like 11 staff or something. And when I finished my divorce, I had 2. And I had a net worth of maybe negative 500,000. Like I owed more money than I had any money in the bank. In the last 4 years, I've rebuilt my life. You know, some of your closest and dearest friends, you know, some of my closest and dearest business associates would turn on me because there was an opportunity to profit from my demise. That breaks your heart. That really hurts. But then at the same token, like I had a friend of mine that was a good friend, and I known him for a long time, just a good friend that I liked and had good business connection with. And he rang me every second week, twice a week. He rang me twice a week, and he goes, mate, how you going? I go, mate, I'm fucked. And he goes, you know what can I do for you? And so when you can't pay your bills, and he goes, mate, I'll put 10 grand in your account. All right, can you get it back to me? I go, I don't know when. That's all right. Right, if I lose 10 grand, it's not the end of the world. Here's 10 grand. And 10 minutes later, there'd be 10 grand in my account, and I got to pay all these bills. I took that immediate pressure off. My best, worst decision. But But then next month when my commission comes in, I got to pay my bills plus 10 grand back to him. Mate, he did this for 4 or 5 years. So he stepped up to be this saint. Him and his family and his. So there's also, on one side, there's people that people didn't let you go. They didn't know how to deal with it. But then there were people that, for whatever reason, stood up for you and really stuck by you. It's a really difficult time. And so it's the compound effect of everything going on in your life. The separation is one part, and it's the main part. But then there's the financial stress, and then there's the skullduggery and the muckraking, and then there's the failure of friendships or family, and you collectively put that together and you go, how do I get through this? And that's when that self-destruct button voice comes in, and it's constant. I'm ex-policeman, raised out north. I'm not a tough guy, but I'm not a tough guy. But I would have cried 300 of those 365 days. And I would always cry in my time, in the shower, in the car on the way to work when nobody else was there. It's so disheartening that your life is so bad that that's where you are. Do you know, a funny thing is, so I got engaged in that period of time to my now wife, and I won the lottery. Metaphorically, I won the lottery when I met her because she's my saviour. But I actually literally won the lottery, and I went into the newsagents and I said, "Hey, just check my ticket, please." And she goes, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Fuck off! Like seriously, my life's so fucked up. This isn't funny." She goes, "You've won." I said no, and I'm just like, "It's not funny." She goes, "I don't have enough money to give you." So it turns out I won second division, and I missed out on the number one prize by 4 numbers. Like it was 67 and I had 63 or something. So, and I got $1,500. First prize was 4.2 million. Nobody won it. I got $1.5 grand. 1,500 was amazing, right? It was really great. And we pulled it out and it paid for a part of the engagement party. But like if I had won the lottery in those 9 years, the numbers would have blown off the page. I was that unlucky. There isn't anything I've been able to do where I've won. And so for me to get a victory, I've got to put in more effort. And I used to always tell my kids the hard road was the road you want to take. It's the one where you enjoy the view from the top the most. Anyone can take the easy road. You know, there's a train up to Machu Picchu you can catch, or you can walk for 4 days up the stairs. I'd rather walk for 4 days. But to do that for a decade is tiring. And like, you know, sometimes like I just want something to go my way. And then you got to be careful that, you know, my position in life now is I have really great company. I've worked my ass off to get back on my feet, and I've taken huge calculated risks. I've let people down. I continue to put in enormous effort, and I continue to always try and be sincere and do my best.
And you're not a victim.
No, I'm not a victim. No, I'm not a victim. And now I have maybe 39 people that rely on me in my life, and I'm constantly under pressure, and I'm anywhere from 3 months to 12 months away from being back on my feet and being kind of unmovable again, where I'll be solid, and I'm having a lot of enjoyment in my life. So it's very difficult for me to sit here and go, hey, you know, woe is me. I don't want anybody's sympathy. The reason
that's not what you're doing.
No, so I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the advertiser, and I'm talking to, you know, Channel 7, whoever it is, because I need men and women, particularly the men who are the most vulnerable and the high-risk category in this field, to understand that you will get through this. You will never feel like it. You sit there on a podcast and listen to a stranger who you don't know. But I'm telling you that you can and you will get through this. But you'll get through it easier if you can open up to people you trust.
When you were going through it, what kept you alive?
My now wife.
Could you talk to her though?
No. And I don't know how to explain that yet. Why I'm sad about that is I know the pain that it causes when somebody decides to take action in this position. You're mentally sick. And so You don't necessarily think about how it hurts everybody else. And again, as a policeman, I've seen that. I've seen the pain. It's phenomenal pain. So yeah, okay, you resolve your problem by taking your life. But then you've just transferred that problem to everyone that loves you. Your mum, your dad, your siblings, your friends, children. There isn't going to be another dad. All right? You've got your dad, and find another way. Find another way that, yeah, it hurt. I know it hurts. So I was sitting on Anzac Highway one day. It was unnaturally banked up, and I was back, I don't know, a couple of 100 metres. There's a bus stop there. And it was an advert for Lifeline, and it said hope. And hope was spelt down this way, and it said, hold on, pain ends. So I sit there and I look at this sign, and I just lost it. It's like lost. I just sat there crying. But it wasn't like crying, it was like bawling my eyes out, where I'm like, I've got my hand up like this, because I know the person in the car next to me can see me like in this state of just disaster. And it's like, when does the pain end? Like, it's been years, thousands of days. It's been years. When's it going to end? What else do I have to do? Because you got this thing like, why is life doing this to me? Well, life's not doing it to you. It's just life. And at the time, it was a sign that I related to. And I believe, I'm not religious, right? But I believe if there's God, he picked up the phone, God rang Lifeline, goes, put this bus stop here because Scott will be here this day and he needs this. That sign in that bus stop was only ever there for me. And so it actually was a message that I could then resonate with. Like you're going to get through this, but you can't see where. You can't see this concept of, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can see the edge of the forest, but you can't. And every time you get closer and think you can see it, you can't see it. So when did I pick myself up? And so it was about January, February 2024 last year that I contacted a friend of mine, Minyong. She's an acquaintance friend, and in 2009 I walked Kokoda with 16 people, and she was one of them. And we'd always been friendly, and her and her husband and her family, and but it wasn't like I'd go and hang around there on weekends, right? So, I don't ring her and tell her about my day. And she was just the right person for me, and I just contacted her and said, "Hey, Minnie, can I catch up for breakfast? I want to run something past you." So we met at a cafe behind Kmart and Carlton Park, and my assistant had just started at the time, and she came along. It was the first meeting she ever attended with me, and I said to my assistant, I said, just so you know, it's going to be like a really weird meeting. I'm going to bare my soul to Minyong, and it's just going to be a bit weird for you. And I'm lucky my assistant is an exceptional person. And I said, Minnie, I've been through a hard 8 years, and a couple of those years I really struggled, and I had suicidal thoughts for many years. I had this concept of telling my story, and it was going to be, I'll write a book about how bad my life is. And I used to always think about the title. What's a catchy title? So I finally got to this point about this time where I go, no, I'm not going to write a book. I'm not going to put down and crystallize my story that is negative. I don't want to talk about what happened to me and how bad it was. It's just, that's a Shakespeare tragedy. So I said, Minnie, what I want to do is I want to walk Kokoda again, and I'd like you to be part of it. She goes, yeah, done, right? So what I decided my story would be is to start up something to help people get through this period of time. And you can't tell someone, you'll be right, you'll get through it. Do you remember the statement that was said to me? You'll be right, mate. You're tough. You'll get through this. You've seen worse than this. So, what we'll do is we'll walk Kokoda once a year. Let's take 100 people. We'll call it the Kokoda Centurions, and we'll take 100 people. And in the process, so the mechanism is the walking Kokoda. And Kokoda's, a passage of right militarily for our country, and the importance of that to the sovereignty of our country is enormous. If the Japs had taken Moresby, it could have been a different war. So people want to walk it. That was the mechanism. But the actual goal is to build the community of those people So those people might be someone who's lost a loved one, someone having a hard time, somebody who understands and appreciates this. And so we're going to bring you on this journey. We're going to walk it. You're going to train for it. You're going to drop your alcohol intake. You're going to have something to focus on that's positive. And in that process, you build a community and you build relationships. So that's about the time that I got through this and realised that my story that was going to move forward was going to be one that's positive, not negative. I'm not going to write a book about everything that was done, because it would be a manual how to hurt the next person, and it would be a sad story, and everyone could read that book and go, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you. I haven't achieved anything there, have I? Now what I can do with Kokoda Centurions, and I've brought on Mignon and Derek in the committee, and so what I sat down and said, hey, let's do this. The three of us have now built into this great little adventure we're going on in August. And so I have the opportunity now with Min and Derek to build something positive, where my story is something that is great rather than sad. I'm now empowered. I got through something in life that I didn't think I would. I've got an illness called Crohn's disease, and I've had things going on in life, and I think I've had a pretty rough life, a pretty challenging life. Right? I'm very lucky. I've got a mum and a dad who have been exceptional and have raised me and given me opportunity. And we weren't wealthy, but we always had comfort and holidays and love. And so I'm also very lucky, and I'm aware of that. And now I've got this opportunity to leave a story that shares and builds positivity. And what I say is we're planting this tiny, tiny seed about mental health, and hopefully Kokoda Centurions. And at this point in time, it looks like I'm up for walking Kokoda every year for the next 5 years, if my body can handle it. That we can grow that into a self-sustaining tree that can shelter people and bring... A tree's a place where you go to seek shelter and seek company. If you go in the parklands, you go camp around a tree, right? So our Kokoda Centurions is this concept that we can build something that will provide support to people moving forward. And so what's important about the Kokoda journey is the ability to help other people get through this. And one of the things you need... when you're going through a hard time, you have to have something to focus on that's positive. So in 2008, I had a separation. And well, maybe it was about 2006, 2007, I had a separation. And it hurt me. I liked her, and we separated. At that point in time, we were both young, and it was a decision that, we thought, okay, well, we both loved each other, but it wasn't working. And she moved on, and she moved on with a friend of mine very quickly, and that really hurt. And at the time I went, you know what, I need something to focus on. So I went and said, well, I'm going to paddle the river. So I went and got a kayak and paddled the river. So I started in Albury-Wodonga and paddled to the mouth at Galway. So it was just shy of it was 2,224 kilometres, and I did it. Raised some money for Make-A-Wish. And so in 2000, when I went through this separation, because I was so overwhelmed and consumed with it, I didn't have that something positive to focus. I had my children and I had my life, but you have to have something positive to focus on. You have to be able to, when you're in the darkest valley, you have to have something that can shine light on you, that you can hang on to and give you hope. And so we hope that's what Kokoda Centurions is.
And you need community.
You have to have a community. But you don't have a community if you don't share. Because you've got a community, you don't share your problems, your community can't help you. And so, I never thought I'd be sitting in a podcast telling blokes to share their message with each other when they're going through hard times. But I live this. And so now I go, why did I survive this? Why did I get through this period? And I'm not any different or any more special than any other person that's got through a tough time in their life. I'm not suggesting that my message is something that I've just found and the whole world goes, oh my God, Scott, how amazing. But I do feel like I survived something, and I have an ability to help other people. And if it's not for the dad, it's for their children, and it's for the dad's family and mother, and his family and his friends, that when that dad gets through that period, when that dad can go, right, so I've got to hang on to hope and I've got to find something positive to focus on, right? I'm going to ride a bike to Melbourne. I'm going to find something. And you can't find something that's for a weekend. You can't go camping for the weekend because that's finished then, right? You got to find something that's going to get you through this period. They get through that period and reflect and look back on that, and their children have got their dad to raise them. And that's what's really important. And, again, if you haven't been through the hard time, you sit there and you listen to this and go, it's pretty obvious. Go through the hard time and find that out, because when you're sick and you're consumed, it's really, really difficult to see any light and anything positive. It's hard, and it is an epidemic in Australia. You have got almost twice as many people taking their life as are being killed in road crashes, and I would suggest to you that 10 to 20% of road crashes are suicide, and so it is. What are we doing to address it? How much did the government put into mental health services? How much did the state government put into mental health services? And if it's as crass as 500 men in South Australia killed themselves, that's 500 lots of taxes you didn't get. So put some money back into mental health services if you need to balance the budget somehow as to why you're doing it. But we can keep putting the problem under the rug and pretending it's not there. But the damage then goes to the next generation, where the boy then becomes a man and becomes a father and says, well, my dad killed himself and I'm having a hard time, why wouldn't I? So these problems are getting bigger. I really think the problem is a breakdown of community and society. We don't live in a community. You walk past someone in King William Road, you don't look at them and say, "G'day, how are you?" So we don't have a community, but that's what's needed to get through this problem.
I think there is some progress. Like the feds have just put 32 million into mental health, and some of those programs are actually useful.
What do they do?
Like it's something though. Before it was zero.
Yeah.
So it's
disgraceful that it's zero.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be built on from there.
Yeah.
That's going towards programs like Movember's program, which is educating doctors on how to better assess men for their mental health. That's like really important stuff. We need more of that. So.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we need 300 million, not 30 million. One of the beneficiaries of Kokoda Centurions. So with Kokoda Centurions, we build a community, and so we're asking our trekkers to each raise $3,000. They don't have to. We just want them to have a goal to aim for, right? So if everyone raises $3,000, if we have 100 trekkers, we get $300,000. We don't need that. We don't want to raise money. I don't want to save the world. So that $300,000 we're donating to the Man Cave and Breakthrough Mental Health Research Foundation. So Breakthrough Mental Health Research Foundation have a program where they have a mental health first aid course for sporting clubs. And I went, yeah, I love that. I love that, because my sporting club, and I've told the boys this, my sporting club was so important for me because it was an escape. And it wasn't an escape from, it was an escape from the complexity of my life where I was just a football player, an average football player. And I got to run around with my mates and kick a footy and not talk about anything serious. And I just felt like me. And for that hour, I didn't think about killing myself. So how bad is your life when the greatest part of your week is you didn't think about killing yourself for an hour? So Breakthrough have got this thing where first aid course for mental health, so that because most people are in a sporting club. It's pretty common. It's an Australian thing. So you're in a sporting club, someone's trained in mental health, and I go, hey, Bob, Cow's having a hard time. Just keep it on the quiet, but do you reckon maybe you could find a way to have a chat with him? So Bob comes up to you and goes, "G'day, Cow. Hey, how's everything going, mate? See you're getting separated at the moment. What can the club do to support you?" And you go, "Shit, Bob, well, this is where I am," right? How important is that? So we're creating and we're intervening in the community, and we're creating a society, and we're creating an ability for somebody to do that. So, and I'm not here to attack governments, but they are responsible for the management of the community, and this is a problem in the community. You will know the stats. This is your what you do at Young Bloods is as important as government funding, because you're sharing a message with people that need that message. What I needed was support, and so you provide that to people. Statistically, 25 to 40, 20 to 44 or something, it's the biggest cause of death in males.
15 to 44 in young people generally.
And are we addressing that? Because how many millions or hundreds of millions go into protecting people on the roads, and 32 million goes to this, which is twice a bigger problem. So, I think there's a real message there for leaders in our community. So then we have Cal McPherson step up and start a podcast. And then we have Scott Matthews and Mignon and Derek stand up and walk Kokoda to help the community. And then we have Movember. Phenomenal what Movember have done. Phenomenal. And then we have hundreds of programs where the community is saying, hey, this is enough. We need to do something. And the community are doing it. Was the government in charge of it, $1 trillion of turnover or whatever the number is.
The community's doing it off their own bat.
Yeah. So it's time for someone else to help the community get a better result. And I say that not because I'm on your show, but you should be commended for the work that you do. And I know why you do it. I hope that when you sit in your alfresco on a Friday night with a glass of red, with your feet up, your dog next to you, that you can feel incredible about what you do voluntarily, at your own expense, in your own time, that this is important enough for you to do it. Society needs to recognise that. I reckon it was about 10 or 15 years ago, Steve Waugh got Father of the Year. I reckon he spent 200 days that year over in the subcontinent playing cricket. It's a pretty shit award for a bloke that wasn't there to be a father. And you get Australian of the Year, or Order of Australia for someone who's a politician who just did their job. And because they're in the government, they get an Order of Australia. You've got you running this off your own back to achieve a benefit for the community without any benefit to yourself. So maybe we need to review the priorities in life as to who's doing the heavy lifting here and how we get men and women through this period. And again, I say to you, as a former police officer, you just went to a body and you just knew straight away it was a suicide, and everyone was just okay with that. It's just another suicide. Where did we get to a point where we said it's just another suicide? How about this is somebody's son that couldn't get through that part of their life and their best option was to take their life? And look, I've been and told mothers that their children have died, and oh God, it's hard. And I actually, if I watch TV now and there's a police knock on a door and pass on a message, God, I'm triggered by that. I get really sad by that. And I haven't been a police officer for 21 years. I haven't been a police officer. And I now reflect on what I had to do as a young man and break that news to families. And it is guttural. It is so sad what you just changed the direction of somebody's life, because their son's not coming back.
And that's a considerable portion of what police on the street are spending their time doing.
Yeah. We know this problem, so let's work to fix it. So that's what you're doing. That's what we're doing with Kokoda Centurions. We're not going to save the world. We might save one person. We might take one person on Kokoda who is having a hard time, who can't share with us that they're thinking about suicide, who goes on this, does this journey, feels amazing at the end because they go, wow, I just walked 100 Ks, 2K elevation. You walk about 7 to 8 hours a day for 8 days straight, carrying a light pack through the forests, through mud. I'm not selling it, am I? And sleep in a tent at night time. And that person might just come back and go, yeah, I'll get through this. And you know what? If we save one person in the next 5 years and 5 journeys, and Well, it's all worth the effort we're putting in.
But no one initiative's doing it all by themselves. That's the point. I mean, this podcast does something to help. Centurions does something to help. The hundreds of other initiatives relating to mental health that are grassroots community things do something to help. The big businesses that are in this space also do something to help. And it's about the collective, which is full of a whole lot of people who are doing it because it means that much to them, because it's so human and it affects us all. And I think over time, with that groundswell of effort and creativity and passion, that we do actually start to see things progress. And I would argue that in the last 5 years, even though statistics aren't better, we're in a better place where we have these conversations. When a man like you now talks about this publicly, as a personal example, and what's the impact of that, and how many other people coming around to that point of view, people from that generation where that was not a thing, now open to it.
It's really confronting to talk about it. So I'll share something that might come to bite me on the arse, but I don't think I'll tell my parents about the podcast, and I don't think they'll watch it if they do. And if they do watch it right now, they're like, "Oh shit, what's he going to say now?" My mum and dad are they're of the generation where you don't talk like this, and I don't know how they feel about me talking like this. They'll probably have embarrassment.
Well, they shouldn't.
So, but you have a generation where you just didn't talk about it. Or you just make that disappear. So it's confronting. Will my wife watch this? And will my children watch this? So to share is the hardest thing that you can do. And so you came to my breakfast recently, and I told a brief story about being brave is being vulnerable, right? Not being weak. I'm not weak. I told you a story at that breakfast. Physically I'm not weak, and I'm stupid enough to not be frightened. Like, I'll run into a burning building and save a kid, or I'll run into a knife fight. So I got stabbed in the police force on my third day, and I didn't have a gun or anything. I just went into the fight because my two partners were in that fight and I had to. And I got a small puncture into my arm, and we're able to disarm the man. So I know that I'm brave. I know that, and I'm stand up foolishly, knowing that I might lose. And so far in life, I haven't. But to be brave is to be vulnerable, or to share vulnerability.
To be honest.
Yeah. So by me sharing with you, it's really hard. Yeah. Because I'm well known. My wife says no matter where we go in life, we'll go somewhere where somebody knows you and somebody loves you and someone wants to talk to you, right? My network is really big. My business is strong. The effort I've put into life is above and beyond. So my message might go out to more people who go, "Oh, yeah. Well, I never thought that." But if I don't share it, I can't help the next person or fix it. And so I don't have to know that person to be able to gain a benefit personally. When I was a policeman one day, and I love cops. I really loved being a cop. It was a great job. And I left a happy cop. So I left because I became a finance broker and I was making more money. It's a capitalist pig statement, right? So I'm making more money as a mortgage broker, writing 2 loans a month, than I was full-time as a policeman. And so I'm really lucky that I left a positive cop, not a cynical cop. But cops have got this nature about them, and any cop watching, look, you've got my respect. But you're quite often cynical, and it's a mask they wear of self-defense, because you're dealing with the worst of society. People don't understand what cops do and what cops put up with. They're not handing out traffic tickets. They are saving lives and fighting, and they're dealing with family breakdowns, and they're dealing with everything. If there's a problem and you don't know how to solve it, you call a police officer, right? So I'm in the station one day, and this guy walks in and he goes, "Oh, hey, I'm probably a missing person." And all the cops are like, "Fuck off, mate," right? So, "Mate, what's the problem?" Guy goes, "Oh, I've been trying to kill myself." So, yeah, okay. So we'll come into the interview room and we'll sit down and have a chat. So I've got to go out the front station through a few secure doors and bring him into this room. He's still there when I get there, and he comes into the room. But I'm 22 years old. I'm a child. I've got no life experience. Here's this man, I don't know, 30, 35, I don't know, sits down with me and tells me, kept trying it and just couldn't go through with it. So at the end of the, jump forward like 6 hours, get in the station, end of the shift, my sergeant goes, well, you wasted that shift, the taxpayers' money. Good one, Sarge. And my Sarge is a great guy, right? But I wasn't out on the road doing the job that I was supposed to do. So I talked to this guy and I talked to him about why. Mate, he wanted to kill himself because he'd built a house in Golden Grove, couldn't afford the retaining walls, got a personal loan, couldn't afford the repayments, got another personal loan to chase a personal loan. And went, well, I'll be better off dead because I failed my family and I've got some life insurance. That is just so sad.
And that's a very common way that men look at the problem, in that logical, although it's not logical, but in that way of, well, everyone will statistically be better off on paper if I get rid of myself, because then at least I'll get the payout.
I had life insurance, and that was a motivating factor for me. So I remember a year later, I was at, so I had to leave, I had to go off the road because of my Crohn's. I had some major surgery. So I went off the road and I went into Adelaide Communications, and I got a Christmas card this year. And it just said, you know, dear Constable Matthews, we'll never forget what you did for our family. And God, it broke me. And all I did was listen to him. That's all I did. I said, mate, I rang his family drove up from Adelaide, and everyone cried in the room, and they're like, you're silly, you know, we'll get through this, we'll sell the house. And, you know, you think, you got somebody's son that's gone through life and education and done this and got married and had kids and was going to kill himself over the cost of a retaining wall, and they could have just sold the house and started again. So, you know,
as you experience, you just get so locked into a sick thought pattern because you're not well.
Because you're sick.
You become totally convinced of that, and you're not thinking logically. And then it takes another perspective and someone who loves you to be able to be there and pull you out of that, for you to be able to step outside of it. If you're just isolated and all you're doing is being in your own head, you just become totally convinced of that.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And so that's human nature. You always think the worst. You know, what do they say? Like 85% of the problems in your life exist in your head only. You know, you think, oh, this guy doesn't like me. The guy probably doesn't give a shit about you. You just think they don't like you, and the more you think about it, the more you think that they don't like you.
Most of what we stress about never comes to pass.
Yeah. And there are mechanisms and ways. Okay, you got a business and it's failing, and you go bankrupt. It's embarrassing. Whoop-de-doo. You can start again. You know, how many famous people have gone bankrupt and then gone on to be multimillionaires? I'm not suggesting bankruptcy is an option that you should just look at freely. But if it comes down to your life or bankruptcy, pick the bankruptcy. And reach out to those people that then, you know, that then will go, mate, I can give you a hand. You just, it's...
Everything is fixable, just about.
Yeah,
except taking your life.
Yeah. And the pain that you leave behind for those people that love you. And, you know, if you're a young person, you have a separation, you don't have children, and it really hurts you, you know, and she separates with you, and you go, oh, gee, this really hurt me. I'll show you how much it hurts me. You haven't achieved anything. She's not going to remember you in 30 years' time. Maybe you'll hurt her enough that she'll then be worried about ever going into a relationship again. Or maybe she'll think you're just an idiot because, you know, she didn't think as much of the relationship as you did. And you've just gone and wasted your life. And you've now transferred a life of pain onto your family, your mother and your father, who spent, like, I love nothing in my life like my children. And the greatest respect to my wife now, and my stepchildren, and my mum and my dad. Like, there's just this thing when you become a parent that those children of yours are just everything. They are every heartbeat. And they should be. And if they're not, you've got to consider why you're having children. And I'm very fortunate and lucky. But those parents have raised you through life, got you to this point where you became a young man. And when you make that decision to take your life, you've just destroyed their world. Absolutely destroyed their world. And I understand it's an illness, and I understand that you're not making that decision freely. But what you have to understand is that there is you can hang on and pain will end. There is a way through this, and you need to reach out to the people that you trust. Reach out to me, and say, I'm having a hard time and this is why, and I don't know how to get through it. And you get someone that's not trapped inside that head to go, what if you did this, right? And, you know, I didn't reach out to my parents. I can't have the conversation with my parents about this. And I don't know how to, at some point in time, I'm a very slow mover, thinker, and at some point in time I'll find out why I feel that way. But, and the reason I get emotional when I tell these stories, like the story I tell about when I was a policeman, that didn't bother me previously. And it was sad when I got the letter from, it wasn't sad, but it was inspiring, and I felt great when I got the letter to say, you've never understand how you had changed our life. I'm like, oh, you know, this feels amazing. But now that I can personalise it, to me, it's devastating, because I appreciate and understand the enormous pain I would have left behind for everybody else.
Well, you can see it in hindsight.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can see it in the moment when you're not well.
See it in the moment. So you've got to get to the position of hindsight, and everything will be all right. There's even a part of me that says, okay, you're going through this incredibly difficult time. You don't know how to get through it. Go get a camper trailer and travel around Australia for a year and apologise to your kids. Hey, Daddy's got to go on a break because I'm really struggling. Go on a holiday. Look after yourself and go and find some peace in your mind. Come back and go, right, I pick my life up now. Not sure how the family court would think that was a responsible thing, but isn't it better than not being there for forever?
Yes.
So I don't know how we fix this problem, but it's you and it's me, it's Movember and it's Beyond Blue and it's Lifeline and it's corporates that are putting money in. But at the end of the day, it will be a community that fixes this problem.
It wasn't any good for you to be told you'll be right when you were in the midst of that. I'm conscious that that's not what you're saying now. When you're saying hold on and pain ends, you're not saying you'll be right if you just sit in it and don't take any action.
Yeah.
Right? You're saying you'll be right if you are self-aware enough to know that the place that you're in is not tenable and that you need to take positive action to do what you can, to reach out to someone, to admit that it's a problem, to actually do something. Otherwise, it won't be all right.
Yeah. My wife watches a show. It's not Chicago Hope. It's not ER. Grey's Anatomy, right?
Yeah.
It's the guy. He ends up with a deaf doctor, and maybe it's Grey's Anatomy. I got no idea actually. And she watches the show, and I ended up accidentally watching the last episode once. And it's a really good heartfelt show. For them, she's a medical professional, so she loves these medical shows. And the show went to this young doctor that came in, and so anyone that watches this podcast, just be aware I'm about to ruin the last anatomy of the show that I don't even know what name it is. And so, so she's the daughter 20 years later who takes over the same hospital as her dad. And her dad walked out of, so she reflects on this story, how her dad walked out of a room one day to someone that had just lost someone they loved and just said, how can I help you? And I haven't watched this show. I caught maybe I've watched it a few times, but I happened to catch the last episode. And so you'll get through this. You'll be right. Isn't it a better way to say, how can I help you? Right? So I've got to plagiarize a show, but so someone says to me, hey, Scotty, I'm having a tough time. How can I help you, Cal? But you've got to believe it. Don't ask. If you don't believe it, don't ask. Then when you go, oh my God, Scott, I'm thinking about killing myself and I can't pay the bills and this is happening. And I go, oh, you'll be right, mate. Well, you've just done damage, right? And so the whole concept of are you okay? Great concept. Doesn't need to be a day for it. It needs to be an everyday thing, right? And you can't ask, are you okay, if your response will be, oh, you'll get through this. Hang on, I haven't told you my problems. I'm not going to get through this. I don't know if I'll get through the rest of the day. And because I've lived it, I then try to help that person. And I tell them about hope. And I tell them that you can get through this. Not you will get through this. I should be right, you'll get through this. Mate, you can get through this. And again, I stress that I never tried to take my life. I never wanted to. I did get to a point one night where I didn't think I was going to get through the night, to the point where I wrote a note for my wife not to come in that room. Because at that point, that was the night that I thought that I might lose that battle. Didn't mean I wanted to. So you say, how can I help? And then listen to the person and help. And if someone says, and I don't know what the position is here, someone goes, oh, hey, I don't want you to tell anyone, but you think you can help that person. Well, you need to say, madam, I've heard what you've said, and I really think that you should do this. I'd like your permission to maybe reach out to someone that could contact you, because they're probably going to go, yeah, okay. Or can I check in with you? And then, so this is where some people go, I don't want to know because I don't want to ring you for the next 6 months. So my mate, Snowy, who rang me for the next 5 years twice a week and did everything to help me, didn't flinch at being burdened by that pain because he loves me. And so I now say to people, like, I love Snowy. I don't think 10 years ago I would have said, oh, this is my mate, I love him. I don't know why, but I do. And so...
Have you arrived at a point now where you tell your mates that you're struggling and you catch up with them and you tell them that you love them?
I now share my story freely to try and help other people, uncomfortably but freely. I tell people that I love them.
But why do you do that now? Like, how has that change occurred in you?
Because I, if you strip a person back, like I lost my dignity, I lost my confidence, I lost everything that I had, I lost. And I've rebuilt myself to a better person. I seek kindness and I seek gratefulness. I finished most of my texts with the clasping hands. Apparently it means high five. To me, it means gratefulness or gratitude or thanks.
Such a dad.
Because I look for a way now to be kind, compassionate and empathetic and considerate when I deal with someone. If someone's angry to me, they're not angry at me. They're angry about something else going on in their life. And I don't, mate, I'm really sorry you feel that way. And I understand the way you're speaking to me, but I don't think I'm your problem. But, could take this down a level and, are you okay? Imagine someone got angry at you and you asked them if they were okay, not in a patronising or antagonistic way. Mm. People don't want to be angry. People don't want to be sick. People don't want to, maybe Hindley Street on a Friday night at 1 a.m, people want to be stupid. But I don't want to be part of that life. I want to be someone that can lift people up, respect them, and own my mistakes. I've made mistakes, right? So many mistakes.
But you've been through true pain and you survived it, and so now you have that perspective.
Yeah, of gratitude and kindness, and love. I walk. I set some goals in life. I used to write goals like, I'll buy a Monaro or buy an investment property or buy this. I don't know, something stupid. Now I've got So my News resolution last year was to walk on the beach once a week, and I achieved that. I think I did 54 walks for the 52 weeks. This year I'm above 100, and we're only halfway through the year. So now what I do is I go down the beach in the morning with my dog. I love my dog. She's a beautiful girl. And we walk on the beach by ourselves. And my wife joins me sometimes, but mainly because she's got a job in a hospital that mainly it's me and Zoe. And I just say hello to the people as I walk past them and smile at them. Find a reason to smile and think about my problems, but find gratitude for the fact that my 4 children are healthy and I'm healthy. as healthy as this life has allowed me to be. And that, if it's a Friday morning, I go, I'll get through the day and I'll go home and sit in the alfresco with my dog. And she's daddy's girl, so she'll sit on the lounge next to me and my wife, and we'll have a glass of wine. And I don't need to focus on what I don't have, or what I might have stresses in that day. I have stresses every day. My day is kind of like, I'm like a fireman, mortgage broker. I just put out problems and solve problems for people all day long. But I'll find reasons to be grateful, and that's a maturity thing, right? But stick 27-year-old Scott in this chair. He probably would have been a pompous, arrogant prick that would have told you how he was going to conquer the world. And I still am trying to conquer the world. But it's not my priority. My priority is my family, my children.
Yeah, well, life hadn't smacked you down yet.
Yeah.
And you've learned what matters.
Life was... If people have had a kick up the arse, I've had a really big kick. And look, I volunteered for Make-A-Wish for a long time. I know there are families out there that go through incredible pain with people, with their children, and medical pressures. And I know there are people that have a pain that I don't understand. I'm very thankful of my healthy children. But for my life and what I've lived, I have every reason to be grateful. So what I need to share in that life is that gratefulness. And when someone gets upset with me, getting upset back isn't going to resolve it. Do people listen? I tell my kids, hey, here's an outcome. Oh, whatever, Daddy. Well, my kids call me a boomer. Whatever, boomer. I'm like, boys, I'm 25 years younger than a boomer. And they all laugh in the car. But it's also one thing to listen and one thing to hear. And I hope that the story that I share now, and for however long I share this story, someone can go, wow, that guy had it really tough and I can get through this as well. And I'm easily Googled, and I'm happy for someone to... I'm not going to have 30 people ring me a day and tell me their problems and burden myself with it, but I'm happy to be available to help people. Why? Because I've been there. Because it was horrible, and because the pain that it would have caused to others would have been devastating, would have been catastrophic.
But it didn't happen, and you are still here. And how good is that for your kids and for your wife and for your employees and for your community? So.
And so I now have a significant majority care of my children. My children are going incredibly well. They are all together at the same school. They're all healthy. They all are living their best life. We are structured and routined. I've now got the rest of my life to try and focus on my health and rebuild that length of life that I might enjoy. And that starts with peace, not like a hippie peace, but give your best to life. And, I don't want to sound like a Buddha.
Too late, mate.
But give your best, and don't worry about everything as much. Focus on health and happiness and family, and that's where I think that's what's really important. Yeah. See, you put an old person on the show and they went and got all philosophical. But again, I will say, like, I was literally dragged through the bowels of hell, and it was a failure of the system that was meant to be there to protect me that is a reason I suffered that. So if I win the lottery, I'll run for politics and maybe I'll change the system.
You've already won it once, mate.
Well, second prize. It just needed another 6 zeros on the end of it. But, yeah.
Scott, when your children do watch this, when they're ready, whenever that is, I think they'll be very proud to have you as their dad. I'm sure they are. Thanks, mate.
Thanks. Thank you, Cal.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Youngblood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Youngblood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video, and they're all up on our Youngblood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.